Well, so we're continuing in today in Mishna Yomi. We're in Perek Hey. Mishnah is Hey through Vav. Chapter 5 in Mesechas Demai, and Mishnah is 5 through 6. So Mishnah 5 says as follows. Hey, continuing still on the same theme of going ahead and having different groups for tithing purposes. If somebody goes ahead and buys Demai produce from an ani, then remember again, the Bartanur explains this is an ani, hamachsir ala psochim, who goes door to door collecting food. So now I go ahead and buy Demai produce from an ani who got it from many different sources. Or if an ani himself was given chunks of bread or chunks of cakes of pressed figs, and now he wants to go ahead and take maisa from it before eating. You have to tithe each chunk, right? Each piece separately. So the idea over here is because, again, in both of these cases, somebody buys from an ani, the ani himself goes door to door, and then I purchase from an ani. That produce came from multiple different sources, and therefore Allah say each one has to be tithed separately. If the ani himself got chunks of bread, chunks of a cake of pressed figs, those are also individual units and must all be tithed separately. Ubetmar begrogros. However, let's say the ani, when he went door to door, got individual figs, dates or figs, right? Tamarim are figs. Tamarim are dates. Grogros are dried figs. Bolel v'notel. He can mix them all together. Now, mix them all together really means he mashes them together, kind of creates one cake of pressed figs, and ultimately is able to consume it that way. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, when is that true? That Allah chalamais, if you have individual dates or figs, that you could tithe them as one group. Bisman shamatana meruba. That's only when ultimately, again, every single individual gift that the ani received was significant. And halacha lamaisa, again, because they're all significant, when you mash it together, there's an equal representation of al bizman shamatana mu'atas, but lamaisa, when ultimately, again, the some of the people gave smaller amounts. So in this case, when you try to go ahead and mix them all together, they don't mix evenly. In other words, so when everybody gave a lot, the confidence is that you can mash it together and it forms one cohesive unit. When people gave different amounts, some people gave a little less, some people gave a little bit more, so halacha l'maisa, it doesn't mix proportionally, and therefore again, na'asa mikol echad ve'echad. Ma'asr mikol echad ve'echad. He has to tithe from each one individually. Incredible. Mishnah Vav, halokeach min asiton is an interesting case. If somebody goes ahead and buys grain from a siton, now what's a siton? Bartanura says, socher halokeach tvo mibali batin. Harbe. This is a wholesaler. So in this case over here, I'm buying grain from a wholesaler. A wholesaler, of course, is someone who's purchasing from multiple different farmers. So now I buy a pile of grain. And then I go back and I buy a second pile of grain. Lo ya'aser mizeh al zeh. You cannot tithe one pile from the other pile. Afilu me'osa hasug. Ultimately, again, this is true. Even if it's the same type of grain, afilu me'osa hamin. Even the same variety. Sug actually means, the Bartanura says, sug is klar me'osa kupa, from the same basket. Even again from the same basket, or even if it's the same type of grain. In other words, the idea over here is that halacha l'maisa, even if you know it's from the same bin, even if it's the same type of grain, because it's a wholesaler, you have to assume that all of the grain is from different sources. But the wholesaler is believed to say, Mishel echad heim, that I purchased everything from one person. So in this case, again, the siton, the wholesaler himself, has a level of credibility to say everything came from the same source, and therefore you'd be permitted to tithe both batches as one. We will stop over here for today. Shkayach everyone, and good Shabbos.